Okay, a couple of mails to read before we head on out. What have we got? From William Lake, all about preppers. We made rounds of the local preppers when I first arrived here in Bridges 1. There should be some interviews floating around that the records team transcribed. Take a look if you get a chance. We were mainly sounding out the situation on the ground and trying to convince them to join the of course, but we already suspected they weren't the type to follow the herd. Why else would they be out here? Thinking face. Still, we found the odd community-minded soul among them. Not all were holed up in shelters by choice. Some were running from something. Others had just been born into that life. Getting the few we did to throw their lot in with the UCA was a pain in the ass, though. Didn't help that the chiral network wasn't up and running back then, either. All we could do was put the parts in place and promise they were going to work someday. And now they finally do, thanks to you. Could be the skeptics might finally come around now that we can show as well as tell. You keep up the good work, you hear? Get us all back on the grid. Thumbs up. From the Elder. Why join the UCA? You still out there fighting the good fight, kiddo? I tip my hat to you for that, and for bringing an old curmudgeon his medicine. I'm doing a whole lot better for it. Much obliged. Thumbs up. So in exchange for signing a contract with Bridges, I get meds and supplies delivered to my doorstep? That's no different from the deal I had with Fragile Express. And while I may not have full use of this here network of yours, I can access the weather data and news I need to make life easier than before. All that without my having to join the UCA. So what incentive is there to do so? Then from the engineer, the commencement of Evo-Devo unit testing. I know it can't be easy out there on your own, Sam, but we need you to stay strong, heart. I started on a few experiments with the Evo-Devo unit you brought me. So far things are going pretty well. I'm not quite at the stage where I can perfectly recreate objects, but I suspect that's only because the chiral network's coverage is still limited. The more items you bring online, more places you bring online, the better my results most likely. Anyway, I'll be submitting regular reports on my progress to Bridges. Rest assured I'll keep at it. Laughing face. Incidentally, I've taken an interest in the Audra deck lately. These days people tend to associate them with BBs or think of them as BT detectors, but they were originally designed as more all-purpose scanners for the detection of people and various objects. Seems they've undergone quite a few changes over the years. Thinking face. By all accounts, many of the original features were cut at some point. One such feature would allow users to project holograms, which could be pretty useful, and another would utilize chiral connections to reconstruct past data for present-day applications. I believe these features are lost forever, though. If we keep expanding the network, someone's bound to take the initiative and create new and improved versions of them. Laughing face. Anyway, I've taken up enough of your time, Sam. We should catch up in person one day. Okay. Where are the interviews? Then data? Yeah, they are. Okay, good. Oh, we've got memory chips. So what's new? This one, Matango. A 1963 horror movie by Ishiru Honda, director of several entries in the Godzilla series, in which a group of 7 castaways find themselves stranded on a deserted island with only one rule: don't eat the mushrooms. But soon enough, mushrooms are the only food that's left, and the rest of the film follows the fate of those forced to sample this forbidden fruit. The mushrooms in this cult classic are the precursors of Death Stranding's cryptobites, or possibly even the coral found in the seam. At least there are certain superfans who say so. Okay, and eggshell carving. Eggs are fragile things. Drop one and it will break in an instant. Eggshell carvings are delicate etchings made on the brittle surfaces of their shells. These carvings originated in ancient China, and their depictions of flowers and birds are believed to have been intended to celebrate births and weddings, at which they were given as gifts. They symbolize the fleeting fragility of life and the delicate miracle of birth, and even a legendary porter would need to exercise great care when carrying one. And then we got music down here. Okay, so let's have a look at... Ooh, got a few new tips. Okay, so I'm keeping the battery up. Oh, pressing L3 can be used to boost any skeleton. Okay, so it's kind of like sprinting again, isn't it? I did have a flick through most of these, but how many of them actually stuck, that's a different thing. Okay, well let's get to the interviews. There we go, the Evo Devo unit, Hartman 1 year ago. It seems a rather significant breakthrough has been achieved back at headquarters. They've successfully integrated an Evo Devo unit into a chiral printer. In case you're not familiar with the term Evo Devo, refers to evolutionary development biology. Your genes, mouse dinosaur genes, the genes of every living being are virtually identical, and yet we develop into such radically different organisms. Thus a question arises, why did such disparate life arise from the self-same building blocks? Evo Devo was the field of study that sought to solve that mystery, to lay bare the secrets of evolution. Before the advent of Evo Devo, it was thought that in order to reconstruct a dinosaur, we would require a sample of its DNA. However, thanks to this technology's ability to extrapolate from existing data, we could, with the correct stimulus, grow a dinosaur from the DNA of any living organism. We could, in essence, recreate the process by which dinosaurs evolved from primeval life forms. An Evo Devo unit applies these same principles to the problem of information and object reconstruction. With the help of the chiral network, we may take incomplete data and indeed incomplete objects and reproduce their complete forms. This data can then be fed into a chiral printer, et voila, partial data yields finished products. The tech isn't viable for everyday use just yet, but when it is, it will be of incalculable benefit to our research and bring our reconstruction efforts forward by a matter of decades. The Chiral Network 2, Mama, 3 years ago before first expedition's departure. In a way, the chiral network makes use of the beach to allow us to travel through time. See, sending large amounts of data takes large amounts of time, as you'd expect. But the thing about beaches is, well, time doesn't pass the same way in them as it does out here. Might not even pass at all. Think about how the light from the stars in the sky we see was produced thousands and thousands of years ago. Routing data through the beach is like jumping to a point earlier in that journey, thereby cutting it shorter. Much shorter. Just imagine, massive amounts of data transferred almost instantaneously. That's what we're trying to achieve with the chiral network in a nutshell. In theory, the network allows us to reconstruct old data that would otherwise be lost, and to do so with fragmented resources. Using what's known as Evo-Devo analysis, we could take the finger bone of a dinosaur, say, and extrapolate from that not only the dinosaur's form, but its composition, internal, external, even its thought processes to a degree. Anything's possible with chiral computing. In other words, we won't just be able to reunite a nation, we'll be able to reclaim everything we lost in the Death Stranding. More even. Theoretically, we could go back as far as the birth of the planet and beyond, and thanks to the beach we'll be able to compile all that data in one place and reduce the processing time of even the most complex analysis to effectively zero. Sounds a little dangerous. Prep interview, the engineer, 2 years ago, personal shelter. My horizons ain't exactly broad. That said, I'm not completely cut off from the outside world. I knew what Bridges was and that they were trying to rebuild America, but when you're living down here, it's hard to see how that's got anything to do with health, am I right? My folks holed up in this shelter after the Death Stranding, had a kid and raised him in their slice of paradise, and together we lived off whatever Fragile Express was kind enough to bring our way. They told me tales about the good old days, but I never had much of an imagination. Couldn't see how a country long gone was any concern of me and mine. Far as I figured, if Fragile Express was happy to keep bringing us stuff, we didn't even need anybody else, and we certainly didn't need America, whatever that even was. But then, one day I was looking at a part for this machine my dad put together. He was an engineer too, and I noticed something. It said, "Made in the USA," right there in tiny print. Got me to thinking that America might not exist anymore, but the stuff Americans built is still around, making our lives a little bit easier even now. You could say the old country lives on in its works, kind of like how my folks live on in me. They died a while back. Anyway, if they were American, I guess that makes me American too, and maybe the shelter is a part of it all. Once I realised that, I started pouring my heart into building stuff to help you guys put the country back together. Okay. So, let's get to work.
something special. Pata mon traché concru. I might later taste some when you're older. A toast to Lisa. And to you. Not bad.
Beginning scan. Scanning bridges ID. Verifying ID. Clear. Weapons detected.
You'll be handing this one off to a guy we call the Craftsman. Repairs, modifications, you name it, he can do it. Makes weapons too. Nothing lethal on account of his pacifism. In fact, if you give him something lethal, he'll turn it into something that isn't. A tool designed purely for self-defense. That's what the gun parts listed in the order are for. Make sure they get to him and no one else. Guns make bodies, and bodies make craters. While you're at it, I'd also like you to transport some blood bags and hematic grenades. You know, the ones you field tested against BTs and delivered to Lake Knot City. You'd like to dole them out to the orders. We've got no reason to keep them to ourselves, so I figured we may as well oblige him.
Order assigned. Beginning scan. Have a pleasant journey. Have a pleasant journey. Keep on keeping on. Weapons restrictions lifted.
2 wheels up. How you doing, Sam? Keep it up. Keep it up. Nice. There we go. 2 wheels up. There we go. There we go. Nice. There we go. Okay.
Beginning scan. Scanning bridges ID. Fragile Express ID verified. Weapons detected. All weapons will be locked until departure. Cargo verified. Thank you. Delivering cargo.
You're not with Fragile Express, are you? Oh, I get it. Bridges is using their IDs to complete the delivery. Well, good work, son. I'll take that off your hands. Package looks... brand new. Wow. Been a while since I've seen cargo in such good shape. Thank you kindly. I know it couldn't have been easy.
What's your angle anyway? Everyone knows Fragile was behind the attack that wiped out Middle Knot City. Only a damn fool would trust that terrorist to deliver shit now. But here you are, filling in. Keeping her business alive for her, am I right? I swear. Can't trust anyone these days. And don't try sweet-talking me onto your little network. You know why there's been so many terrorist attacks recently? Because you all pissed them off with your talk of reuniting the country. Join the UCA. I may as well paint a bullseye on my shelter. Just keep my deliveries coming. We'll get along just fine. I don't need any trouble. Though I will say, I appreciate these hematic grenades of yours. Quality work, gotta admit. Not the sort of equipment the UCA ought to keep to itself. There's a lot of freelance porters operating in these parts, after all. If I could churn these out by the boatload and gear up those folks. Now you're good people. I can see that. And you brought my order like I asked. But it'll take more than that for me to agree to what you're asking. Chiral Network is a big step. But if you could prove to me Bridges is an organization I can trust... Well, how about this? Do another run for me. I'll put the details on the terminal there.
Good work. New order available. Please access delivery terminal.
Not far from Middle Knot City, you'll find the ruins of an old shopping mall. They predate the Death Stranding. The Craftsman used to live there. Until terrorists organized a void out or two and BTs started showing up. Needless to say, the Craftsman had to move house in a hurry. Grabbed what little he could and left most everything else behind. Which is where you come in. He wants you to go and get his old toolkit and bring it back to the shelter. His old home's locked up tight, but he'll open it remotely for you when you set out. Place is crawling with BTs, though. No one in their right mind would even try to pull this off. But if you can, then the old man might finally realize Bridges is only trying to help.